I am on the product marketing team at Notion, focused on Notion AI. I joined the Notion team in 2018. At the time, Notion was a really weird 10-person company in a little garage in the Mission in San Francisco with a weird founder and a weird product, and I couldn't help but join. And it's been really inspiring to see Notion grow. We're at 500 plus employees today, and seeing how much the Notion community has grown all over the globe. But it's been an important sort of personal journey for myself as well. It's my first time working for a SaaS company, my first time being on a marketing team, my first time doing product marketing. And so I'm really looking forward to learning from you all as well as other experienced marketers in the field. So happy to be here and nice to meet y'all. And to give you an idea of what you might learn from my presentation today, it's probably going to feel like a combination of a little bit of a sales pitch, a little bit of a live demo, as well as sharing some learnings from Notion's AI launch, both in February of this year and November of last year. So I think Notion ships a generally available AI product to all of our users several weeks or months before many of our competitors. What that meant is that we really prioritized speed to shipping, and we made a lot of mistakes along the way. And so I wanted to share some of those learnings with you all today about what we learned from our launch. And then I'm going to give you all a live demo of our newest AI feature, which is AI autofill in Notion databases. There have been a lot of successes and disappointments in our AI launches from the past few months. And so I also wanted to end today by sharing some predictions of where I think AI is headed from here. But before we move on, quick show of hands. Who has heard of Notion or uses Notion? Oh, wow, that's great. That's great. So for those who don't use Notion today, wanted to give a quick overview of what is Notion, even before we talk about, what is Notion AI. And so Notion is an all-in-one tool that brings together your team wiki, which might be your team knowledge base. So everything from company holidays to processes on your IT team and everything in between. Your documents, which would be your meeting notes, your sales call notes and everything like that, as well as your project management, all in the same tool, and now with AI. And so being able to prevent a world where you have all of these sort of siloed tools, where you have, one tool like Confluence for your wiki, and then you have a whole bunch of ad hoc documents and meeting notes stored in something like Google Drive. And then you use a separate tool, even like Asana or Jira, to manage your projects. And then yet another tool for your AI like ChatGPT or something else. And so I think the thing that makes Notion really special is the ability to do all of these things all within the same tool, the same context, where everything is sort of interlinked and you're not spending time context switching. Another thing that makes Notion feel really special is that people use Notion both for personal use as well as professional use. And I always say that no one is using Evernote at work, no one's using Apple Notes at work, and no one's using Salesforce for their personal to-do list. So the fact that we have this, enterprise-grade SaaS tool that people are using at work for their own personal productivity at work, and storing their family recipes and their grocery list all in this same enterprise-grade SaaS tool makes it feel really special that you can have sort of your work and your personal life stored within the same tool. So that's just a brief intro of Notion itself. But what is Notion AI? And I wanted to share a little bit about where Notion AI came from. And I know that this probably comes off as a humble brag, but it is important to the story. In October 2022, Notion went on a company retreat to Cancun. I think at the time, more than half of the company had been at the company for less than a year. And so it was, really important coming out of the pandemic for everyone across all of our global offices, Japan and Ireland and all these places, to come together in the same place to hang out together and really sort of align on the company vision. And so while we were all having fun on the beach, getting a tan, we did not realize that the two co-founders of Notion locked themselves in their hotel room and started tinkering with connecting Notion to OpenAI. And so after we all got home to San Francisco and our other offices the following week, there was a mysterious and sort of foreboding Slack message posted in our Slack from the CEO saying, hey, the co-founder and I, we've been tinkering with AI. We just got an early preview of what this technology might look like in a few months. Let's do this thing. Let's not derail all of our company priorities, but let's put together a really tiny team to see what it might be like to have a functioning AI prototype in Notion. And so really, really quickly, by November 2022, we had already released this private alpha, this invite-only waitlist for Notion AI. Our goal for this waitlist was to get to 250,000 signups for the waitlist, and we wound up with 2 million. And so I think there was a lot of benefit in moving really quickly, sort of beating a lot of our competitors to market here, but it still wasn't generally available for everyone. And so using the learnings from this alpha period where we had a small group of people beta testing Notion AI, in February 2023, we opened the floodgates, and then we made Notion AI generally available to our tens of millions of users. No waitlist, no limited preview. Every single Notion user around the world was able to use Notion AI as of a few months ago. So it was really inspiring to see just the sudden pace, the speed at which the company was able to ship this and get it to market. And there was a lot of learnings along the way, which I'll share. But let me show you what it looks like. There are a few different ways to use Notion AI in Notion. And so one of those ways is exactly what you might expect, which is when you're on a brand new page, you can click this Start Writing with AI, and then it gives you a few ideas of what are some of the things that you might want to do. So we want to create a press release about the launch of Notion AI. This is sort of the standard ChatGPT use case that we've all become pretty familiar with over the past few months. But what makes Notion AI feel really special is that it lives inside the place where your documentation already is. And so if you have a page that's full of content like this one, and then you press your spacebar to pull up AI, it's going to recommend a different set of actions because you're pulling up AI on a place that already has a lot of content. So would you like to summarize the content on this page, find the action items from this meeting note, things like that? So being able to use this existing content without having to worry about going back and forth between your doc and then a separate AI-powered tool is really powerful. And then finally, we'll get into this in a bit more detail in a bit, but if you select, let's say, a individual paragraph, you wrote something, but you're thinking, I wrote this thing, but I know it can be a little bit better. You can pull up AI from the formatting toolbar, and again, it'll recommend a different set of actions again. Do you want to improve your writing? Do you just need to fix your spelling and grammar? Do you want to change your tone, etc.? And so being able to recommend different actions depending on the context in which you're using AI has been something that is felt to feel a little bit more differentiated and special from ChatGPT. This is one of the most common questions that we get about Notion AI. How is it different from ChatGPT? And so I wanted to start with this ridiculous metaphor. There's no beer at this event, but I would encourage everyone to take a sip every time that I introduce a new ridiculous metaphor. But who has had a digital camera, like a point and shoot camera in the past before you had your, camera built into your smartphone? So I think, how do you sort of quantify the value of owning a camera? It, of course, is through the number of photos that you take using the camera. And before smartphones, like if you can think about the frequency at which you use that device before it was built into your phone where you're spending so much of your time, I think we can all confidently say that we're all taking a heck of a lot more photos today and thus getting a lot more value out of owning a camera today than when it used to be siloed in this separate device like it used to be. And so this is what makes Notion AI feel really special. It's an assistant for your work in the same place where you're doing the work. So if you're taking meeting notes, being able to really quickly generate a summary of those meeting notes inside the meeting note itself, rather than hopping back and forth, copy pasting to ChatGPT, getting the output from ChatGPT, copying again, going back to your meeting note and pasting again, and just introduces a much more frictionless workflow when it's available from the place where you're doing your work. And so this is sort of the intro of what is Notion AI. And so the next section here is I wanted to talk about some of the most important learnings from these launches, both the November launch and the February launch of Notion AI. And I think the thing that I found most surprising is that most people want AI to be an editor of their work, not an author of their work. And this sort of went a little bit contrary to what we were thinking about in our original launch in November of 2022, which you can see on our original landing page. Some of the first use cases on this landing page were write a cute haiku about robots, burritos, or your quarterly OKRs. Of course, there are many silly things that you can do with generative AI. And when we saw this technology, our minds just started going wild. Think about all of the things that people can create with AI. You can do your press release, you can write a blog post. And we got really stuck on this idea that people would want to generate net new content using AI. But in reality, this is what it wound up looking like in the alpha stage before it was released to all of our users. And we really just slapped users in the face with AI every single chance that we got. Every single time that you created a new page in Notion, we threw all of these different ideas at you. Would you like to write a blog post? Would you like to write a social media post? What would you like to create with AI today? In reality, out of all of the different entry points for you to use AI in Notion, only 6% of those actions were actually performed using these prompts here, even though they were so in your face. People would try it out. They would see what the output looked like. But I think a lot of people would look at the AI output and think, I can do a little bit better than this. I'm the expert in the room. I know my work. I'm a good writer. I can do this thing myself probably a little bit better than the AI can. What we were really surprised about is that the number one way that users in this initial test group actually preferred to use Notion AI was via the formatting toolbar. And there's a really important learning in this, which is that people prefer to write their own thing first, like, let me create something out of my own creative juices. I know what I want for this press release to look like, but I also know the quality bar can be a little bit higher. There's this sentence that doesn't quite feel right, not confident, or maybe I wrote this thing and I know that it's twice as long as it needs to be. At this point, this is where people prefer to bring in AI and lean on the AI like, I made the thing, now you help me make it better. And also, this is where AI starts to hallucinate a lot less when you're just giving it your own content that you created yourself, and then giving it really specific instructions of, just make this better, fix the spelling and grammar, make it shorter, make it longer. And so this is a really important learning from that initial test group. The second learning here is that I think users needed really specific use cases, like a level of specificity that we didn't get to in our marketing materials. I think there's so much that you can use Notion AI for, so many different possibilities. And it was really hard to articulate as a marketer, like, what do you do with Notion AI? And it's, you can do so many things with this tool. And so I created what I thought was a really clever marketing messaging framework, which was work faster, write better, think bigger. Work faster was about, save time doing these things, these manual tasks that would take you a long time, like writing a summary or doing action items. Write better is about taking your content that you wrote yourself and then asking the AI to make it better. And then think bigger is treating it more of like a brainstorming partner. You write the first draft and then I'll iterate based on that first draft. I thought this was pretty specific. In reality, this was nowhere near specific enough. This was a lot of marketing fluff, not a whole lot of substance. And I was really surprised after the initial launch that the most common feedback that we were hearing, especially from our B2B customers, was, wait, what do I do with this thing? What is it for again? Can you give me a prompt? I don't know what to do with this. And so I think the level of specificity that was needed even got down to the point where we needed to write out a really creative AI prompt, share it with the customer. Hey, just copy paste this prompt into your Notion and you can see what it can do. The level of specificity that we had was a little bit higher than what we needed. And again, with another metaphor, I think what customers really wanted to see out of our product was kind of the experience of looking at a selection of Lego sets. You can see like, oh, you can make this specific thing or this specific thing. And what it actually felt like in this initial experience was just sort of the loose bucket of Lego bricks. Now, I don't want to talk too negatively about this loose bucket of Lego bricks because power users, people who are really enthusiastic about AI, people who are creating courses, entrepreneurial, some people really thrive in this environment where you just give them a bucket of loose Lego bricks and they'll create something awesome right away. But I don't think this describes most people. Most people need to see the options first, the really specific, like, oh, this is what I can make from that loose bucket of Lego bricks. And so more specificity, I think, was needed in this launch. And the third one, which I actually just added in the past few minutes based on some of the questions that have been asked from the other presentations, is that security and privacy is really important. And one of the most important and impactful decisions that we made about this launch, and was actually buried in our terms of service, which I screenshotted here, which is that Notion does not permit our AI partners, which are OpenAI and Anthropic, to use your customer data to train the machine learning models, which is, of course, really important to a personal user for personal use cases like your diary, etc. But for our B2B customers, this was even more important. I don't know if y'all saw an article from 3 Samsung employees who accidentally leaked sensitive company data just by using ChatGPT. Because by default, when you use ChatGPT, you're giving your consent for all of your inputted information to be used to train the model and thus be discoverable by other users of the service. So the fact that Notion made this decision that we would not allow this, we're not going to allow for OpenAI and Anthropic to use your data to train their model. I think in hindsight, we should have elevated this a little bit in the marketing materials, talked about it proactively, and elevated it as like a core messaging pillar of the launch. Like, you should choose Notion AI over other partners because you can feel confident that it is a secure and private solution. And we didn't do that in our initial marketing materials. And so at this point, we're playing a little bit of catch up, making it more appealing, especially to customers in Europe and Japan. This privacy and security sort of marketing messaging is really impactful there. And so I wanted to, that's sort of the past learnings from the launches in November and from February. We actually had an additional launch just a couple of weeks ago where we introduced AI functionality in Notion databases. Now, a lot of people raise their hands that they use Notion. And I think a lot of us know that one of the things that makes Notion feel really special is the ability to have these really complex and customizable databases in Notion. But one of the limitations of the initial AI offering in Notion is that you could only really use it on just one page at a time. You could use it in this page or this page, but there wasn't any way to combine Notion AI with databases. And so this seems like the next logical step for us. And I wanted to show a couple of potential use cases for this feature, specifically for marketers. And so this is a trimmed down version of the real database that the product marketing team at Notion uses to track all of the upcoming features. And each one of these pages here is filled with so much information about each of these launches. Launching features is really complicated. It takes a really long time. There's a lot of planning that goes into launching each of these features. And so there's a lot of content in here, which to a product marketer, we might be really familiar with. However, to someone like a cross-functional partner on the sales team, on the customer support team, who's coming to this database just wondering, like, what the heck is, the next thing? What are we shipping next? They're going to have to sort through all of this, like, ton of information to understand what we're working on. And so how can we use AI to speed this up a little bit? We have some new AI-enabled database properties here. And so let's start with just the AI summary. We'll try it on this view. And then we'll unwrap the column here. And we can see in just a few seconds that even based on the ton of information inside each of these pages, AI was able to create not just one summary, but a summary for every single item in this database. But I'm also noticing that these summaries are a little verbose. They're not that easy for me to scan through. So what we can actually do is we can ask the AI to do any custom prompt that we like. And so what I actually want here is explain this feature to me like I'm a beginner in 3 bullet points. So this essentially gives Notion users the ability to use the time-saving efficiencies of Notion AI on a completely new size and scale. This database that I made for this demo has 5 rows in it, but many of our customers have databases with hundreds of rows or thousands of rows. So being able to perform these AI actions at a new scale can be really impactful. And of course, if you have colleagues in other offices who speak other languages, you could even do something like output in Japanese. So that when your colleagues from the Tokyo office are taking a look at this database, trying to understand what's the company working on, what are we shipping next, they're able to have their own property where they really quickly see a summary of everything that's going on. So the sky's the limit here. I've seen product managers use this for writing user stories for a number of features. I've seen user researchers use this feature to distill insights from really messy notes that you take during UX research. So, really the sky's the limit with this feature. Being able to do it across massive sets of data all at once is really exciting to see shipped to our customers. So that's AI autofill. But I'm also sort of wondering, where's the industry headed from here? I think, at least at Notion, we're just starting to understand how AI can be impactful for our users, and we've learned a lot from the past, 6 to 9 months. And so I wanted to finish my presentation with a couple of thoughts on what the future looks like from here. Starting with something that I feel particularly strongly about, which is, yes, AI exists, but who's actually getting value from AI? Is AI just this toy that makes things like Balenciaga, Harry Potter videos, and writes poems about burritos? Or is it something that's actually useful to your day-to-day life and actually saves you time at work? And so I think it kind of feels like today, like AI is like the concierge at your hotel. Yes, the concierge exists. Yes, you can go up to them and ask them for so many things. The concierge can be helpful for so many different tasks. And yet, you, as the hotel guest, you have to express intent. You have to go up to the desk and you have to ask for the thing. And you have to be aware of all the different services that are available. And so I think the result is I've stayed at a number of hotels that had a really stuffy looking concierge desk just like this. And I didn't use it. Even though the value was available to me, I didn't express the intent of taking advantage of it for myself. And so I think the AI that's going to win in the long run is AI that feels more passive, more ambient, and more anticipatory, because a really sort of useful and luxurious experience is, if your concierge of the hotel says, hey, I saw you at the pool, I brought you this pina colada, or I brought you this sunscreen. As long as you're keeping the human in the loop with an AI action where you're either approving or rejecting suggested AI edits to your contents. If your AI can make helpful suggestions during your workday, even if you as the user are not expressing the intent of, I'm in the middle of my work, and now I'm going to pull up my AI assistant to help me with this task. I don't think that describes the average knowledge worker today. I think it describes an AI enthusiast. I think it describes a power user, people who really enjoy tinkering with software. But I don't think the average knowledge worker, it occurs to you in the same way that it doesn't occur to you to approach the concierge and ask them for help proactively. I think AI has a lot of opportunity when it starts to become a little bit more anticipatory of your needs, as long as it's asking for your approval before it does anything for you. And I think today, a lot of AI tools, they feel like that. They feel like a tool. And for a generic sort of out-of-the-box large language model, even in somewhere like Notion, if I ask the AI here to recommend changes to Notion's company strategy for 2024, it's going to give me a horrible output, because this AI, as it's implemented today, can only see the contents of just this one page. And if you ask the same question of ChatGPT, you would also get a horrible output, because it's trained on the whole internet, but it doesn't understand the inner workings of your company. And so I think AI is going to start to feel a little bit more like a teammate and less like a tool when it understands your business and how you operate. And so we're starting to experiment with, we have a lot of customers who have thousands or tens of thousands of pages in their Notion workspace, everything from previous decisions that were made to process documentation, engineering tasks, projects, all of this information about how the company operates, all in the Notion workspace. What would it be like if we used all of that information with our AI, so that when you ask it questions that are really detailed about company strategy or really anything about the company, that it has that understanding of how the company operates. And so I think this is where AI is going to start to feel a little bit less generic and more genuinely useful. And finally, I wanted to share what I think the real job to be done is for AI. Personally, I think I've noticed as I've worked with AI engineering teams over the past few months that we get really excited about these brand new technologies, but I think it's resulted in us thinking about the technology first and then trying to invent a user problem to, sell that thing that we built. And yes, the technology is really cool, but we have to stay grounded in what's the real user problem that we're solving with this technology. And so I think all of us in this room, we're good at our jobs. We were hired in our jobs for a reason, but we don't always have the opportunity to get into a flow state and really produce the high quality work that we were hired to do, because work about work gets in the way. These sort of menial tasks, these meetings about meetings, the cross-functional communication, spending all day in Slack, answering repetitive questions. These are the things that prevent us from being able to do the good work that we were hired for. And so I think if we can truly delegate some of these menial tasks to AI, that'll allow us to focus on what we're best at. And that brings me back to, the origins of computing. Notion as a company has always been very centered around computing pioneers from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And these folks who were dreaming about computers just down in Silicon Valley a couple decades ago, when computers were first becoming a thing, the intention was never for computers to replace us. One of the most important early computing pioneers was Douglas Engelbart, and this was his most important work. And it's not about replacing human intellect, it's about augmenting human intellect. And I think this is where I see AI fitting into our average day-to-day life, is not by replacing us or replacing teammates, but allowing us to offload some of our manual tasks so that we have more breathing room to do the things that we're really good at as humans. Absolutely. I think something that I repeat to our team over and over again is that you should not have to spend your Saturday watching 6 hours of YouTube videos before you're able to understand how the heck to use Notion. But I think that's an unfortunate reality today. It's a complicated tool. It does sometimes, the core product, even without AI, sort of feels exactly like this sometimes, which is, a bunch of loose building blocks that you can build whatever you want with. But I think a huge opportunity for AI is, kind of similar to what we saw in the Beautiful presentation, which is, let me just describe what it is that I want to build without needing to understand the mental model of what is a Notion database or properties or all these complicated things, and just have the AI create that thing for me. And so those are some of the early things that the AI team is starting to think through. I think it's super important in any marketing role to always be playing around with your competitors' products. Just this morning, I was playing around with Coda AI, which feels a little bit more clunky in some areas, but actually creates databases quite well, even better than our own product. And so sharing those learnings with our team, I find really important to keep your pulse on the competitive landscape. For really quick and dirty AI prompts when I'm on the go, I'm really liking Bard these days. It's frictionless, it's easy to pull up, it's super fast. The information is up to date within the past 24 hours. I've been really, really impressed by Bard. I would say the only difference is that when you're writing a prompt in Notion, the AI is also taking into account all of the context of the page in which you're using it, which is not true in Bard or ChatGPT. But aside from that, I think where we have a lot of opportunity to help is more hand-holding during the prompting process for the user. I think this is the other thing that I've learned from the launch, is that writing prompts is really, really hard, and it's becoming a really important skill. And the more that we can do to sort of walk people through, this is how you write a really effective prompt, or turn it into more of a button pushy experience and less of a blank canvas, tell us whatever you want sort of experience. I think that's what's going to make AI feel more user-friendly to the average person and not just the AI enthusiasts. It uses a combination of OpenAI and Anthropic. I've been told by our engineers that for them, using different models and providers is sort of like a chef using different spices. And so with some of our like internal only, really speculative AI features that we're starting to test out, you'll see our engineers like rip and replace different models every other day to see like, what is this task? Like, what does it look like if Anthropic does it? What does it look like if OpenAI does it? And we're finding that different providers are actually better suited to different sorts of tasks within Notion. And so I wouldn't be surprised if in the future we're using like a completely proprietary blend of like 26% Anthropic and this percent this. Like it really is a constantly changing combination of different models that we're using for different sorts of tasks. The only sneak peek that I have to give is actually to a previous question about using Notion AI to answer questions in Slack. So being able to ask a question in Slack and then have Notion AI respond in the Slack thread with the answer to that question, that does require us taking your workspace and sharing all of that information and running it through our AI providers, of course, without giving them permission to train the models, etc. But that's sort of the paradigm shift of going from a world where we only use the information from one page at a time to, we're sharing your entire workspace of information and context and documents, and then being able to ask it any question and then immediately get the answer based on all of the thousands of pages of content in your workspace. Yeah, I think today the thing that solves that pain point is templates. If you go to Notion's template gallery, which is notion.com/templates, this is where folks go to find like pre-built workflows, pre-built processes, or whatever it is, because you don't necessarily want to spend 6 hours watching YouTube videos to understand how to build a thing in Notion yourself. Maybe you'll be able to find something really similar in the template gallery. But even when you've come to the template gallery, even after you've duplicated it, you're looking at it and you're like, this is almost perfect, but I kind of wanted it to be a little different and I still don't understand how to like edit it for myself. I think that is a big opportunity for AI, a world where you can sort of just describe like, please create for me an exercise tracker with the following properties that does X, Y, and Z, and then just have it create it for you. It's something that we're definitely thinking about.